The Dwarfkin have hunkered down for a storm that has lasted several nights. At the end of the blizzard, the party gathers together with the survivors of the troll attack whom they had saved several days before. Most of the battalion of mounted furies attached to this handful of soldiers is nowhere to be seen. Hyaphis leads everyone to the wall of rocks at the edge of the Valley Kingdom. They travel to the base of a system of ropes that allowed them to be lowered down the mountain into the ice wastes the week before. There are none of the usual guards nearby, and the rope system has been destroyed in an apparent avalanche. The falling ice and snow has exposed a nearby hole in the mountain, which the party determines may be good shelter for the time being. Yegar, Goran, Julie, and Hyaphis travel with half a dozen other mountain furies to climb up the side of the mountain to the hole. It turns out not to be a cave, but part of an old entranceway that was covered in ice. Partially open now, the bent giant iron doors allow for access, and they go in and begin to explore through what looks to be an ancient mountain fortress. The Valley Kingdom is just over 1,000 years old, and there's no record of a Dwarfkin mountain fortress in this part of the Chine, which stretches from across the known world. The symbols and house crests in this place are not recognizable. It seems that it predates settlement of the Valley Kingdom, which is contrary to legend, which states the Stonefists were the first to rule in this untamed land. Down the hall in the first room, the party encounters a rock lizard that manages to kill 2 of the Dwarfkin soldiers. In another room, they discover the scrawled warnings of a, quote, black creeping menace, which is written on the wall near the skeleton of someone who barricaded himself in the small room. Julie crawls into a tunnel that had been dug into the wall by the occupant, who the party determines was trying to find another means of escape. The tunnel leads to a sheer cliff. When the party comes back into the hall, they discover that one of the 2 rear guards feels sick, apparently a black slime that is covering a nearby stairway, wall, and ceiling dropped onto his lips. The other guard, seemingly in a trance, feels compelled to touch it despite being warned not to. Goran blows his horn and snaps the soldier out of it. The 4 stay with the sick mountain fury while they order the remaining Dwarfkin who was in a trance to go back down the mountain to lead the rest of the survivors back to the entranceway. In the meantime, Yegar, Goran, Julie, and Hyaphis explore many rooms. In some they find bits of treasure, in others just debris. It seems to be the barracks area of an ancient mountain fortress. Hints by the skeletal remains is that chaos befell this place. It looks like some may have been fighting each other. Others seem to have barricaded themselves in rooms. The 6th soldier with them insists on sneaking off and going back to a room they discover that pours forth with water. The inscription on the wall they encountered earlier warned of water being a sign of trouble. They deny the soldier despite his thirst. He becomes angry and acts like he is losing his senses. He begins thrashing about. The party decides to tie the soldier up for his own safety and puts him in a room that is filled with pots of oils while they continue to explore. In one room, they fight off giant rats that seem very hungry, and they escape to a long hall lined with many skeletons. There is an outpouring of rats from the fireplace there, so many in fact that they have to leave or be drowned by the vermin. The most curious room has 6 large jars opposite 6 boxes. It appears to be a religious room with symbols of the 9 Dwarfkin gods. Each box contains a different small treasure. Yegar opens one of the jars to discover that it houses a body that has been preserved in a soupy mix. This is apparently a burial room. Yegar takes an amulet from one of the boxes. Upon taking it, the jar opposite cracks and liquid seeps out. Soon after, they find a secret door in the room's fireplace and follow a tunnel. There is a hole in the floor of the hall with levers nearby. The party decides to ignore the levers and jumps over the hole. Yegar is the last to jump, and before he does, one of the levers moves on its own and the hole opens up. He takes this as a sign that he has been cursed for removing the amulet from the burial room. He jumps the hole, barely making it. The party travels deep into the mountain and discovers a flooded throne room with rows of gold shields on the wall and the giant face of one of their 9 gods near the throne. They decide they have gone far enough on their own, and the party goes back to the burial room with the jars and boxes. When arriving, Yegar returns the amulet. Upon approaching the room of oils where they tied the sickly soldier for his own good, they no longer hear his moans and pain. They call out to him, but there is no answer. Julie slowly opens the door, and Yegar has a sword ready. They see the warped and deformed mass of what was once the soldier who has managed to rip out of some of the ropes. There is a blackness coming from his mouth and eyes. He is no longer a dwarfkin, but some sinister darkness. They throw torches in the room, which knock over the pots of oil and slam the iron door shut, to the shrieks of the creature as it burns. They return to the great room with the fire pit where they first encountered the rock lizard. The rest of the dwarfkin, who were down below, are beginning to make their way into the mountain fortress. Hyaphis determines that a short stay in this place to rest and eat is sufficient, but resolves to move everyone out the next day in an effort to return to the valley.